Good morning, everybody. Hope everyone can hear everything okay. Give us a shout if you can't. This is Steph from Simply Rhino, and I'd like to welcome you to this Simply Rhino webinar brought to you along with our friends at TDM Solutions SLU. In today's webinar, we'll be looking at creating some beautiful deco earrings using the popular jewellery plugin RhinoGold. You'll learn how, when using RhinoGold, you can model your design, create a photorealistic render, and have your design ready for manufacture in quick and practical time frame. Our presenter is Pedro. Pedro is the RhinoGold CAD manager at TDM Solutions SLU. If you've got any questions during today's webinar, then please type them in and send them over to me. We'll either answer as we go along, or we'll do a separate Q&A at the end of the webinar. Please note we're recording today's webinar and you can view it again at your leisure. We'll be sharing that on the Simply Rhino website in the next few days. So I'm just going to thank Pedro and hand over to him now for the presentation. So Pedro, over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you also all the Simply Rhino team. It's a pleasure to organize this webinar along with you guys. Also would like to thank all the attendees for joining us today. And as you can see on the screen, this will be the earrings we will be modeling today. So please feel free to use the chat, any question, anything you would like to clarify. And I'm going to start opening RhinoGold Interface so we can see how to design this model. So as you can see now, we are on the RhinoGold interface, and in this case, the first step I'm going to do will be the curve to define my channel on the earring. So I'm going to use, under the drawing tab, the Smart Curve tool. As you can see, this will be the location of this icon, and I'm going to the right view. So I just double click to see clear the right viewport, and the idea now it will be to define the curve, and of course when we are defining the curve, we will be also defining the measure for this earring. So I just activate the grid snap to make sure I'm using these points from the grid. So I'm going to start in these points, and I'm going to define my curve, the curve where I'm going to apply the earring. So as you can see, we have in this curve we have, I'm using the grid as reference, so we have 24 millimeters since this point until this one. So this will be the length of my earrings. Remember, if we need to change anything on the curve, we can any moment edit the control points. So it's just with the edit points tool still under the drawing tab if we need to adjust any of these points. In this case, I'm just going to click escape because I'm happy with the curve. I don't need to edit. And finally, back to the perspective view, I can see my curve, and I will use it to apply a channel to define the central part of the earring. So to do it, under the Jewelry tab, we can find the channel tool. This is the icon, so I just click on the channel tool, and the side panel, the first step, I need to select the curve. So the curve where I need to apply my channel. So I just click on my curve, and you will see that automatically I have a channel applied on this curve. Of course, I need to define the options. In this case, I will use the rotation option to adjust the position to 90 degrees rotation. And as you can see, the channel will have the orientation to the top as I need. Also, inside the channel tool, we will find several options. As you can see, this is open in the end, so I have the option to use outside CAD channel. So this option will allow me to make the ends for the channel. Of course, I will need to go to the ends tab to define exactly the measure for each one, the start and the end cap. So as you can see, I can adjust the thickness in here. So let's use, for instance, 0.8 in one. So maybe not this one. The start I'm going to use 1 millimeter, and the end 0.8. We can check in here, and now we will also need to define the gem size. So I have by default gems with 2 millimeters. In the gem and cut tab, I will find the gem diameter. I will use in this case 1.5 millimeters. So I will also, under the general parameters for the channel tool, I will define in the third option, I have the the wall thickness. So I'm going to use 0.8, and as you can see, I'm defining exactly the channel I'm looking for, and also I will need to create, I can add more gems. As you can see under the gem and cut, I have by default the option fill channel. I can turn off this option and manually adjust the number of gems, so a possibility to try to add as maximum as possible. And finally, I have the bridge tab. So this tab allows me to, as you can see, between gems I don't have anything, and I can turn on this option to enable the bridge between gems. Maybe I can confirm under the right view and probably changing to wireframe display mode exactly the bridge I need, and I just need to follow these measures to adjust as I want. So maybe a little bit deep. I will use probably 1.2. I just want to make sure it's touching the bottom wall. And finally, the thickness. So 0.4 looks good, maybe 0.4. And now, as you can see, the central part is correctly defined. So I just need to click OK to apply the changes. So the first one, it's ready. So let's now create the side one. So let me open just the model. So this one was successful created. I'm going now to change to the side ones. So once again, what I'm going to do is to select the curve I created on the first step, and using the gumball, if I press the Alt in the keyboard, I can move the gumball, and of course in this case I will create a copy from the curve. So now this second curve, I will cut the curve in order to apply the channel just to part of this curve. Under the drawing tab, we can use the split tool, and in the command line, as you can see, we have the option to use a point to split the curve. So in the right view, I can cut exactly where I need. In this case, I'm going to cut in here. Just click to a point and press enter. You will see now the curve is divided in two parts, and I can delete the part I don't need. So once I have the curve defined, the next step will be exactly the same. I will go to the jewelry tab, and with the channel tool, I just need to select now the new curve and use exactly the same options. In this case, I rotate 90 degrees. I use the option outside copy channel, and under the ends I will define one with 0.8 millimeters and the other with 1. So I need also to define the gem size, so let's go to use 1.5 millimeter gems, and I will also define the wall thickness to 0.8. Finally, maybe define the number of gems. Let's use 8 gems. Maybe I can fill channel, in this case will be exactly the same. And what I can do now, it's the final step to use the bridge, turn on the bridge option to make sure I have this metal part between gems. So as you can see, this is really easy. Just using the channel tool, we can define all the options we need in order to define exactly what we are looking for, and I just in the end click OK to apply the changes. So in the other side we will have exactly the same. I will use the symmetry, but before I need to connect both parts, and I will use, under the modeling tab we have the cylinder tool, and I will use the cylinder to connect both parts of the, in this case, both channels. So maybe in the right view it's easier. I just need maybe to remove the grid snap. I just need to define the central point for the cylinder, so it can be here, and I will use the option diameter, and I will define 0.8 millimeters. So 0.8, and back to the perspective, I need to define the extrusion distance. So something like this will be more than enough, and then I just need to move in order to make sure both parts are connected. I can apply, of course, a metal under the RhinoGold materials in the side panel, for instance, for carat gold to this part, also to this one. And once again, I will copy, in this case, the cylinder using the right view, just to make sure I will have a good connection. So I want both sides connected, one in the top, other in the end. So I'm going to use, under the transform tab, the copy tool, and I just copied this cylinder also to this area. So somewhere in here will be perfect. Back to the perspective. So as you can see, we have both parts connected, and now I can select all these parts, both channel and cylinders, and using the symmetry, in this case horizontal symmetry, to make exactly the same in the other side. So as you can see, really easy so far. Maybe in this one I can edit just to make sure. I will use the gem material I want. In this case, instead of diamond, I want to use emerald. So just click OK to apply the changes. And finally, we need to define the back part of the earrings. So I will use the elements for this, will be easier. So elements icon we can find in here. So I just click on elements, and I'm going to the findings family to use the one I'm looking for. So I'm going to use the number 7. I will just open this side panel to define the material. I want yellow gold, and I click on the number 7 to add to the document. Okay, so here we go. We just need, of course, to place in the correct location. Maybe in the right view it's easier. So let me go back to the render display mode. I place my model, in this case my object, exactly as I need. Back to the perspective just to confirm it is as needed. And maybe I think we have everything defined correctly. I just need, if I want to create some tool to break these sharp corners, I can easily use the fillet tool under the modeling tab. So variable fillet, I can select first the radius. So radius I will use 0.5 millimeters, and select, of course, the edges to fillet. In this case, all these edges in the top of the channel, and let's go back to the render display mode. And now I will do exactly the same to the bottom edges. So I just want to avoid these sharp corners, a little bit rounded. And now I can do the same to this end. So to do it, I will select again the variable fillet tool, but now for the ends I'm going to reduce a little bit. Instead of 0.5, I'm going to use 0.3 millimeters. So I just want to apply it to all this outside part. Let's see, the fillet radius, it's enough, it looks good. So I just select these edges. You see that I use the variable fillet tool, and if I select just the edge, you'll see that it selects edge by edge. So I need to select several times. So if I use the option in the command line, chain edges, I just click on one, and of course it will automatically use all the edge I'm looking for in order to fill it. So now, finally, these parts, once again, I use the chain edges option, and I select the entire edge. The same in this one. And finally, this one also the same. So as you can see, the model is ready. Really easy. Of course, the other will be just a copy from the left and right are exactly the same. I'm going also to create the render just to show the final process. To do it, I'm going to define my copies. So I'm going to select all the object, and with the copy under the copy tool and the transform tab, just select origin point, and then the second point to copy my earrings. And back to the right view, I can adjust the position for the render, so maybe rotate a little bit in this direction. And now I can open Render Studio in order to define the render for my earrings. So let's go to the Render tab, and in here we will find the Render Studio tool. So I just open my Render Studio. To be easier to apply the materials, I can go to the RhinoGold material selector and select, for instance, diamonds, and these are the real-time materials. Now go back to the Render Studio materials, and in here go to gems, and I apply the diamonds from the Render Studio. So remember, Render Studio materials are for render, and real-time materials are the ones we use for RhinoGold to know the weights and are not to these materials, we shouldn't use these to render. So remember always to apply the render materials. In this case now, the emeralds, I just select from the material selector, then I go to emerald and in Render Studio and double click to apply to the selection. So finally, once again, yellow gold, I select yellow gold, and then under the metals I can apply any of these golds. In this case I apply this one, and now once I have the materials applied, I can apply now under the render tab. I can define the resolution, so we can use different types of resolutions, and of course once we define the resolution, I just need to click on render to start calculating the render. So here we go. At this point we are calculating the render. I've defined it 800 passes by default. Actually, I don't believe this model needs so many passes. So remember, I can stop once I feel the render is good enough. I can stop the render. And as you can see, really easy to create these earrings. So let's just wait a little bit more to finish the render. It's still calculating. I believe it will improve even a little bit more. And this is the idea. Remember, if we don't apply any ground, by default we have this white ground, but we have also several other ground options under the Render Studio materials to apply the ground on the render. And this is it. We are almost with 400 passes. I believe it's more than enough. I will wait until the 400 and I will stop. It looks good. This is the idea. Now I just can stop the rendering here. I believe it's more than enough. We have this image editor after the render where we can adjust a little bit the brilliance, the contrast, and so on, apply some logo if needed. So there are several options, and of course finally I just need to save my model, in this case my render. I just define the location where I want to save, file format, in this case JPEG. So I just save it, and here we go. Model render done. I can close Render Studio on this icon and go back to the design file. So I just say yes to go back to design file, as you can see. And this is the idea. Really easy. As you can see, we have made the model and renders in 20 minutes. I believe it's a nice exercise, so you can practice the channel tool. Mainly, it's the main tool we use on this model. But of course, also the rendering resources are really nice. And please, Stephanie, let me know if there are any questions, anything you would like to take a look.
Hi, Pedro. That was brilliant. Thank you. That was amazingly quick. They're very beautiful.
Thank you.
I'd quite like a pair. They're lovely.
Yeah.
No questions so far, but if anyone has got any, then do send them over now. And we're back again, Pedro and I. April the 13th, I think it is, Pedro. We'll be back, and we'll be looking at doing some pave cufflinks then. And for that webinar, you can sign up and join us via the Simply Rhino website on the webinar page. And hopefully we'll see some of you then. And if anyone's got any questions about this webinar or anything to do with RhinoGold, then please drop me a line afterwards, and we will get back to you. But other than that, just like to say a big thank you to you, Pedro. That was wonderful. Thank you to you and the team at TDM SLU. That's great. And we'll see you. We'll be back on April the 13th.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thanks, Pedro. See you then. Cheers.